Are back here, the European Hearthstone Grandmasters, and we are ready for our match number 4 and final match of the day. It is going to be Bunnyhoppor versus Seiko Sotol, and this is the one we've all been waiting for, isn't it? Excited for this potential priest matchup?
I actually am. Like, very, very genuinely, I am. I think, like, the matchup is a slog. Players generally choose not to play it on themselves. Like, they're actually people who've, at high legend, even towards the end of the season, where it's relevant to get, like, a top 16, top 32 finish, or whatever else, have just been conceding instead of playing the priest mirror, which led to really great stories of people just queuing up with a priest, like an auto-completed priest, and then just queuing up at high legend just to get free wins off other priest players. But I actually think, like, for broadcast purposes, the matchup is going to be pretty entertaining if we do get it. But, of course, that's not a guarantee. You know, one of the priests could pick up a win somewhere else in the series, but they are still up here. As expected, we're just seeing double warrior ban on both sides.
Yeah, nothing too surprising there. The priest builds are a little bit different, but we can dig into that a little bit later on. But outside of that, the lineup overall are just the same for both players. And we see the Demon Hunter here for Bunnyhoppor is just topping out with that Skull of Gul'dan, the double sidekicks, the one Spectral Sight, Frozen Shadow Weavers, and I-Beams all just add up to what I would at least say right now, Sotol, is just the list for Demon Hunter.
Yeah, I'd find that pretty hard to argue with. As I was saying earlier, like I think, you know, if I was submitting, I would submit this list or close to it, maybe one or two cards different. I'm not sure, I haven't dug that deep into it. But I do think the Priestess of Fury players have a leg to stand on this week. Furthermore, I mean, actually, just as we were in break, it got announced that potentially Priestess of Fury is getting a nerf, which means it can't be that bad of a card, right? I'm sure you guys have already well up to date with that since we are from the past. But still, now we can see Demon Hunter here from Seiko, and there is a very unusual looking card in this list here, Raven.
There is. Is this one of the tech cards you said you might swap in if you were submitting for the for this week's hold? The Blowtorch Saboteur as it stops your opponent playing their hero power, right? Is that what it does?
No, it's three more expensive. It's like Lothar for hero powers.
Oh,
basically.
Sorry, yeah.
Three mana, 3/4. Your opponent's hero power costs 3 more. Or I think your opponent's next hero power costs 3 more.
There we go. Which is pretty big in the mirror as well, because
it'd be kind of weird. Your next opponent's hero power player costs 3 more. Just the next guy on ladder that you queue into. It's just like, wait, what? What happened?
The guy he just starts the game and you load in. You're like, oh. It's like you just got suddenly a 4 mana hero power from turn 1. You're like, whoa, this guy plays Blowtorch. But yeah, pretty big deal, especially in the mirror as well, because we see the sheer power of Demon Hunter hero power. Not only the Metamorphosis effect, which is maybe the biggest one, but also just not only the early game, but I think every stage of the game for Demon Hunter, the hero power shines. It is one of the core strengths of the class in itself. The only class with a 1 mana hero power, but also it just being +1 attack in a weapon-based class is huge.
Yeah, it's a very cute tech, and I'd be interested to see if it comes into play. But, you know, that is sometimes the danger with tech cards, right? Is that if you're only playing one of them, sometimes when you're, you know, queuing up tournament, it's just not going to come out and have an impact. But you can't think like that. You've just got to think in terms of percentages. And if you feel like including one of these cards gives you an additional percentage of draws where you get an advantage against your opponent, then you go ahead and do that. I do like that he hasn't substituted a Frozen Shadow Weaver for it. Like, if he was playing one Frozen Shadow Weaver and one Blowtorch, that would drive me insane on multiple levels. Firstly, because I'm just a big Shadow Weaver fan, but secondly, just playing 1 and 1 of 2 different tech cards when you can potentially play 2 for the same matchup, philosophically, that just doesn't sit with me. It's just not what I'm about. So I like that he's found room for all 3 of them, but it remains to be seen whether there's a sacrifice somewhere else that will come back to bite him.
Yeah, I'll also have to see just an interesting output from that card is like the collateral tech, I guess. It's like versus Face Hunter, you just lock out the hero power for a turn effectively. It's pretty cool as well for things along the lines of not only just the hero power for the quest, but also for the Face Stalker too. You can just make that just a problem. And Face Hunter, as we've talked about already today, really needs to use all its mana to its full, damage potential to win games. That's what it's built around. But we are going to be kicking off with this Demon Hunter mirror. And this could set the tone for the whole series, honestly, because as we said, the players are bringing effectively the same lineup to this match. And normally, if one player just gets ahead early, and that just blows open the whole series.
Yep. Winning mirrors generally a good thing when there's a very mirrored lineup, and the bans are mirrored as well, which of course they are here. Both warriors biting the dust. We did get to see one player play warrior today out of the 8, which might even be one more than I was expecting going in. But that player did end up winning the series, even though it took 2 attempts to get the warrior over the line. But we are now back to what I would call normal service, although whether we can describe it, what we might see in a potential priest mirror as normal, I don't think so. That will be anything but.
Yeah, chaotic neutral, probably, along the long lines for that priest mirror. In terms of the opening hands,
True evil, good, Raven, that's what it is.
Yeah, I guess. From my perspective, it's the warriors that are evil.
Ah, okay.
How do you feel about Chaos Strike in this opening hand for Bunnyhoppor? Great responsive card, but is it good enough to keep?
Going second, it's probably better. But I'm still not entirely sure I'll be hanging on to it. Yeah, I like the full mulligan here, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like Chaos Strike's never a card you're that upset about drawing, because it cycles itself. And 2 mana, give yourself +2 damage is just good, right? So I was just interested in a mirror match where it's so board-focused early game, whether a 2 mana kill a thing and replace a card in your hand is ever worthwhile. I think overall probably not, but something to think about.
Yeah, I think, generally early game you want high tempo plays, and then you want the lower tempo, higher value cards to come into your hand later. Be that, Priestess of Fury, you don't want a Priestess of Fury just stuck in your hand the whole game, or be it, Skull of Gul'dan, Spectral Sight, Chaos Strike, for example. You're happy to top deck one of those on like turn 7 or 8, but you don't really want it hanging around in your opening hand where you could just be playing stronger tempo cards.
Yeah. Good tempo play. Speaking of which, from Seiko, you can just drop the Sigil Runner and Hero Power down the 2-1 and control this board. Might change with the draw from the Sigil Runner, of course, but Warglaves has enough really change. Play this turn.
Job's done.
I wonder if we're going to see anything. I mean, you'll remember better because it was your story, but the interactions between when and how to play Satyr Overseer, and if now it's going to change with Seiko's draw of Warglaves. Because there's the idea, right, that you can actually stall and make a much bigger board.
Yes, particularly with this hand as well, because these Satyr Overseers are just so slow right now without Twin Slice. And I do think that is a thing in the Demon Hunter mirror, but there's a lot of context clues that need picking up on to make it a big thing. For example, like if you're putting your opponent on a Glade-bound Adept hand, then suddenly your turn 5 being Warglaves doesn't really give them a Glade-bound Adept target, because most people don't want to go first with the Glade-bound in the matchup because it just gets sniped back the other way. So you play Warglaves, for example. They kind of have a weird turn because they wanted to Glade-bound and you're not giving them a target for it. And then the turn after, you just have a big swing turn with Satyr Overseer, where again, their Glade-bound isn't very effective because you've made maybe 3 minions.
I got you, friend.
So, with this particular hand where it's just not good on curve because there's no Twin Slice, I think that is something that you're going to need to look out for. Whereas potentially Bunny on the other side, since he does have coin available, might just play it faster.
Yeah, there is that chance even now with the Umberwing. Means he can get something going with Umberwing Hero Power and kill off this Battle Mage, which because of the sidekick has been extremely pesky so far this game. And I honestly think the more I watch Demon Hunter mirrors, the more I like them. I think there's so many little things that happen.
Agreed.
So many small plays. It's like, I did a stint a few days ago where I was just playing a lot of Demon Hunter on ladder. I was like, I'm bad with this deck. and this deck was supposed to be the broken one, right? Where you could just close your eyes and play. But I actually think there's so much to it.
I grow impatient.
I agree. I think there were some points, early on, like day 1 Demon Hunter, when it was just obscene, where you were just so much better than every other class. You could just shut your eyes. It didn't really matter. The skill ceiling and the skill floor were just kind of compressed together because your cards were so strong. But as it's been tuned into a place, and as it seems like it will continue to be so, tuned into a place where it's more in line with everything else, I think it is showing itself to be a very, very difficult deck to pilot optimally.
so difficult. Bunnyhoppor spent the whole turn and did end up with a bit of a, I won't say backwards play, but maybe an unintuitive play of the hero power first to poke and then have the Umberwing. And what this does is lock in the free weapon swings, i.e. you've already paid mana for them, shoot durability, to give himself swing, coin, glaive bound into swing, glaive bound. So again, a small thing that has a huge impact on the outcome of the game.
Yeah, and he is paying some health for that luxury because, of course, he doesn't kill a minion in a position where he would have killed it if he'd have used the hero power and the Umberwing in combination last turn. But it does seem worth it, especially when there's also just that Satyr Overseer as well that also wants weapon charges. I think holding on to max charges here just makes so much sense.
And also now, you start to just piece together the puzzle of Bunnyhoppor has, if he wants, the Adept into Adept. Then, if he can get rid of this Overseer, he has a buffed Skull into an Altruist to maybe finish the game, because once again, this is one of the less common Demon Hunter mirrors, I feel, that maybe people would play out, that isn't ending it that soon, right? Like, Bunnyhoppor's on 21, Seiko's on 27, barely even board state.
Yes, Warglaives and this Metamorphosis might have something to say about that, though.
It is, but I think there's enough time in this game for Bunnyhoppor to consider an altruist plan.
Yeah.
I
do want to go back to
the there, right?
I do want to go back to the point I was making earlier as well about how players generally don't want to go first with the glaive bound because you just get counter glaive bounded. I guess need to caveat now that we've seen it happen, like coining out the glaive bound is one of the opportunities where it's kind of best practice to do that, because then your opponent requires Twin Slice and their own glaive bound adept to be able to punish you, especially if they don't have a weapon equipped. Or I guess exactly if they don't have a weapon equipped.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing as well, because it's not like there are multiple punishes. You either see they've got a weapon equipped or they haven't. That's a very easy thing to see. So that means that you've got a very straightforward read on what's the potential punish or not. Bunnyhoppor does have hero power and the Satyr Overseer. He wants to kill this that way. Because the issue now is, does he want to put the glaive bound into a 2-2 or save it for something a little bit more threatening?
Well, this is also the exact dynamic I'm talking about, right? Like, playing glaive bound here, your opponent has a weapon, they have 6 mana, they haven't really had a good opportunity to play a glaive bound yet. Like, your 6/4 would just get glaive bounded by your opponent if you went for that line. Seiko doesn't have it. We can see that, you know, Bunny potentially would have been rewarded for the play, but I think that's a big part of the reason why you see Satyr Overseer being the play here and not glaive bound Adept.
And also as well, because you know both of these boards die to the Warglaives, this board takes up 2 charges and does the same amount of damage and saves you a glaive bound. Bunnyhoppor doesn't have Warglaives in sight, which means it's not like he could have saved this Overseer for, you know, the 3-4 swing turns you can do where you make a giant board. There isn't Warglaives there, so just another reason why the Satyr looks pretty strong this turn. But now Seiko has to work out whether he wants to just say, I-beam, let's go.
Yeah, he also has the Overseer swing turn that I've been talking about as well, if he wants to go for that.
He can still do that with his Chaos Strike, but just for more damage to take. And he has I-beam for recovery. He has Metamorphosis, I-beam, hero power. Oh, that's just good. That's strong.
We're with you.
Twin Slice, exactly. Oh.
He could still try. He could Altruist. Does he have to just Altruist and play it?
Well, you could, I mean, if you wanted to take that line, you could just Chaos Strike, because if you draw Twin Slice, you can still just play Altruist afterwards, right? You don't have to commit to it.
What if he draws nothing else that would work?
No, there's no other card.
Just need a second to double check and think about it. Maybe he plays a Wisp.
Yeah.
He does not play a Wisp.
Do you
the point of doing it that way is that you can then... I mean, it does 1 extra damage if you draw I-beam, sure. If you don't draw I-beam, If you draw like Sigil Runner into Sigil Runner into I-Beam instead of like Twin Slice or something, and you haven't left yourself mana open, is that ever relevant? I don't know. Tiny things, but whatever. Moral of the story: Seiko, very, very dominant victory in the end there, and it was actually kind of a nice little matchup. It's kind of one of those perfect little caster moments where everything we talked about kind of happened. Like, we talked about a few things that could happen in the matchup from turns like 1 to 3, and then all of it happened. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, you have to decide at home whether that is storytelling skill honed over years of practice, or if you just say enough stuff, sometimes it works out.
It's that one. It's definitely that one. Yeah.
Revealing trade secrets here. Just keep saying things and it'll happen. But Seiko, yes, I'm not sure if it's the moral of the story, but it's the outcome of the game where he did win game number 1, and that means that Priest and Rogue is available for him, and Bunnyhoppor still has all of the classes ready. And again, it's very interesting. What do you make? Have you decided on what this Priest versus Demon Hunter matchup looks like? Because I feel like that was one that was very hotly contested, and one of the reasons, combined with Warrior, that people were even playing Priest on ladder.
So I was a bit distracted. I thought I'd figured it out because he potentially gave himself out for Frenzied Fellwing to still cost 0 off the top. Where he deals the damage,
okay.
But he doesn't play Frenzied Fellwing in his deck, so it wasn't that. So I'm
Okay.
just back to being confused. To answer your question, Raven, the original build of Priest that we first saw week 1 of GM, that people were like, yeah, this is a Demon Hunter counter. It wasn't. It was trash against Demon Hunter. It might have beat bad Demon Hunter players, but any good Demon Hunter player would realize they can just out-resource that deck, and it just doesn't actually really ever get there. This newer build that actually has punishes when it gains the board, like Apotheosis, for example, I think is a much better tuned deck for dealing with what Demon Hunter is trying to do.
Okay, well, it looks like Bunnyhoppor is going to be actually going to his Rogue for the next game, which is going to be a 2-off with the 2 Ambush, 2 Dirty Tricks, and 1 Bamboozle secret package, along with that Blackjack Stunner, which is actually receiving a nerf very soon. It's going to be changing to, once it's saps it with only a +1 mana increase on the card, not +2, which is, I think, pretty fair. Whereas the rest of the package just looks like a pretty straightforward deck outside of that Kobold Sticky Finger. And with the Demon Hunter gone, it's got to feel a little bit worse on.
Yeah, it certainly does. But when you're banning Warrior and when the Demon Hunter has already got over the line, that could be a bit of a problem tech card for Bunny. But we'll see if it comes back to bite him.
And we do see Seiko is going to be also playing his Rogue with a little bit of tech for himself as well. The Bone Wraith and Kartuk Defender, definitely not standard inclusions in the build, but it looks like Seiko is, what would you say, sacrificed both of the common packages for all these tech cards, right? No secrets and no, as in not no stealth minions, but no stealth package. Which means he can squeeze in 2 Frozen Shadow Weavers, the Bone Wraith, and the Kartuk for all of the anti-aggro tools.
Yeah, and I kind of like this. Honestly, it's not really a build that I've got to play around with too much myself, but just playing Spy Mistress as a good removal card in the early game and a good aggressive card in the late game, I think makes sense. You don't really have to play anything else to support it. And then to use all those kind of made-up spots just to play a little bit of extra defensive power, because the fear is that, you know, Rogue will get run over, and maybe that's where Seiko Sword sees the weakness. And this is kind of option C, right? We talked about option A and B at the start of the day, about whether you react to Rogue being bad by thinking the meta will go faster or slower, and then how you chose to react to that, which we've seen various people do. But there's also the reaction of, well, I still think Rogue is playable, but how can I just tune it a little bit to gain back some win rate where I'm just, you know, I'm slightly sub 50% in a few matchups. How can I get those back up above 50%? So Seiko's just putting in some anti-aggro stuff, which makes sense. But there are a couple of players who have tuned up a couple of very interesting builds of Rogue. Seiko here, Hunter Ace, who we will see later on as well, has something real spicy cooked up in the Rogue department.
Yeah, and I will say as well, if you are maybe newer to watching European Grandmasters, or just watched it anyway, Seiko is a player to keep an eye on if you want some spice in your Hearthstone life. Basically, because last week he was one of the few players to even bring Priest. He's brought it again this week, but again, just not a common pick. And then this week he is iterating on this rogue. Even his priest build is a little bit different as well, along with just the way he approaches the game in general. He's just a very, for me at least, all exciting player to watch compete, because he always has his own way of doing things. Maybe similar to Viper as well.
Right.
Regardless of how fancy you want to be, though, Van Cleef is still Van Cleef. And it looks like Seiko's just slowly getting there with coin, choice of one drops, Van Cleef in hand as well.
Yeah, seal fate to create another one-drop option for him as well.
We almost can't talk about that card anymore, Sol.
I know.
Only had the sound effect I wanted it to.
Choose soon.
Is this ever just yeah, I was gonna say, you do equip the ambush over the dagger here, right? Just to one, the fact that Bunnyhoppor has two, but also in case any shenanigans could happen, either well, it wouldn't be a Hanar actually, but just anything played down early, it means Bunnyhoppor has some players going forward.
Yeah.
What about the Praise Galacrond, or do you think Seiko actually wants to save some of his stuff? Well, it does generate him a one-cost card.
It does, yeah. It just replaces itself, so unless you get to the turn where you're going to play Praise Galacrond and the Lackey that comes out and Edwin in the same turn, it's kind of just net the same. Does this make sense? Also very important that Seiko has the stealth minion here. You can see just the power of Spy Mistress on its own, even outside of the stealth package. This 2-3 needs to be dealt with, and Seiko has the perfect card to be able to deal with it so that he can get on with his big Edwin plan.
Yeah, one of my earliest, I'll say surprises, but discoveries maybe, was that even when I was playing Highlander Rogue in the early parts of the expansion, whenever I played Spy Mistress early in the game, I felt great. So, and that was in Highlander when I did it much less consistently, of course, but every single time you get to play that card early, it achieves something pretty good.
Alright, is Seiko happy with the
Bunnyhoppor
medium
just
Edwin?
karate chop the camera? I don't know what that just looked like. It's like, yeah.
Seiko happy with the medium Edwin, or does he want to go for the massive Edwin? I think with just how clean the Seal Fate is, this makes sense.
Yeah, it gets to just hold this Spy Mistress and effectively contest anything Bunnyhoppor can do in the foreseeable future, right? Even with just a dagger equipped, he can take down a Shield of Galacrond.
That one. Pick that one.
Is it definitely that one? He could play Ambush and Dragon Sword this turn.
Well, what's the point in that? Like, you play an ambush and then you've left a minion alive that kills your ambush anyway.
Yeah, the legendary.
Kind of seems worse.
Is this the turn, Subtle? No secret.
It's looking a lot more like the turn than last turn was, certainly.
So much nicer as well because Seiko got a one-drop reborn. Means he can really just not only play a lot of stuff, but have some board presence outside of just Van Cleef. So if Bunnyhoppor has to go all in on slowing down or killing Van Cleef, Seiko has a board to work with as well.
The Brotherhood shall
Which is basically the best of both worlds in this circumstance.
Aww.
Seiko that bothered seeing this Fan of Knives? It's a little bit frustrating, but it means he very likely keeps in the 87.
Yep.
Follow up as well with the Shield of Galacrond.
Couple of secrets now does give Bunnyhoppor some redundancy, so he can actually play the second ambush here to try and deal with the Edwin that way. Previously, I think Bunny was holding on to his last secret in hand because he always wants Blackjack Stunner to be a live draw.
I think even if this is ambush, it's fine to play Shield of Galakrond anyway. Maybe you could actually just go Lackey into Bone Wraith instead. Or even a Vis, but
Yeah.
my thought pattern is if Flick is the thing you're worried about in terms of, oh, you could flick the Shield of Galakrond and poison the Van Cleef. Well, they could flick the Van Cleef then anyway, so it looks like it's not going to be too bad regardless of this being ambush. Just eviscerate it and say if Bunnyhoppor's been, maybe scrambling is a strong word, but not being able to really defend against this push. You just eviscerate and go again.
Trying to work out, because against Flick it's all very similar, right?
Right.
Like, playing a Bone Wraith means that he could technically clear up both minions, but it would cost him a dagger charge, and then you'd have a 1-1 left in play. But that's just the same scenario as if he flicks here when you've eviscerated the minion. You just have a 1-1 left in play, but that is allocated to the dagger that Bunnyhoppor has instead. So because it's so similar, I think, yeah, probably just eviscerating the minion.
Right. The way I sort of saw it play out was if you play a taunt, Bunnyhoppor can actually kill that taunt without using the poison, and then he kills your Van Cleef. Whereas if you kill the poison, he almost has to have Flick or like double eviscerate.
Yes. Yeah, there are outside chances, particularly with a Lackey in hand. You see, actually, the Faceless Corruptor draw, for example, is one of them that Bunnyhoppor could have used to chew through taunts there that wasn't Flick. But this does seem to narrow down the outs a lot more. But again, like, the Faceless Corruptor just challenges the Edwin this way anyway. I think it's all just remarkably similar.
It's going to soak up everything, though. And also, importantly, going into turn 7, Seiko knows Bunnyhoppor now doesn't have a Lackey.
That's true.
So at least, you know, even with Van Cleef gone only pushing 8, which is still pretty good, obviously, but now he knows there's no Lackey Tog turn. One of the hardest parts of Rogue, working out whether you should swing the dagger. So Bunnyhoppor can generate some lackeys, but he can't accelerate this Galakrond at all, so he has options with this Shadow Step, whether he wants to, say, go crazy with the Miscreant to at least just get a full hand of options, although it might not be super powerful on this board right now. Outside of that, I doubt it's going to be Galakrond Go, even with Kronk's Shadow Step.
Well, I've talked about this before. Like, my general rule for playing Galakrond is, like, can I look myself in the mirror and call the other thing I do this turn a good turn? And I genuinely don't think I can. Like, I don't think Bamboozle Evil Miscreant is a playable Hearthstone turn. So I think you just have to Galakrond in that position.
Galakrond Miscreant anyway.
Yeah, seems good.
And I did mention that there's also just Kronk's Shadow Step as a powerful, you know, if Seiko pushes on to board this turn, then there's Kronk's AoE and he could always Shadow Step it back if you really wanted to save it. Ooh. Not often you see the old Shadow Step Shield of Galakrond play.
No, it's not. It's not often you see that either.
Yeah, so much so, we nearly broke the game.
But yeah, that is the 4th invoke now for the Galakrond that Seiko has in hand, so it makes perfect sense. He wants to use his Shadow Step like that, just to get maximum power out of his power card.
The problem here is I did mention that there is Shadow Step for the Kronks, but that leaves Bunnyhoppor an awfully weak board.
You saw Bunny hold back on the previous turn as well, just kind of figuring he would end up using Kronks immediately afterwards. No real reason playing his 0-cost 1/4 Miscreant just to get blown up on the following turn. Just goes ahead and does it afterwards now.
Go for the scheme plan.
The Viper strat?
Oh!
Yeah.
Do you sometimes go full Viper? Shadow Step on the Krunks leads me to believe Bunnyhoppor's a yes on the answer. Or at least a give myself the potential to do that.
Dark in the skies, my nightmare reigns.
Oh! That
Okay
was
then,
just
mate.
all of them. Just all of the good things. Just found them all. This turn.
Some interesting choices though, right? Like, what does Seiko do, if anything, with Krunk? Does he just scheme it? Oh, we can do the wand into Krunk's scheme.
Yep. Wondrous wand. We've all seen it. Yep.
Why are we in a game of Hearthstone where neither player's running scheme, but both players are basically going to try and pull off the same plan? Okay, so while we're at this point, what is a good number for this scheme right now for these players? Because Bunnyhoppor is obviously under pressure and might feel he might even have the time to get more than 2. But what is the number they're aiming for, but don't say 100?
Well, it's relative to the number of cards you have left in your deck, right? So the
Yes.
smaller your deck gets, the smaller you need the number of your Togwaggle scheme to be. But your goal is to Wondrous Wand and draw at least 2 Kronkses. So you just kind of need to pay off that ratio of how many you're shuffling in versus how many cards you have left.
So currently for Bunnyhoppor it's on 2.
Return is nigh.
He's on 15 cards. We've got 7.
And he doesn't have the treasure yet. Like, he's a long way away from actually making that plan happen. For Seiko, it's a lot more realistic.
Darkness wanes.
Does look like Seiko's got a stranglehold on this game. Not only did he get the full-powered Galakron out, he has more cards, he has more flexible tools, i.e. Flick and this Worm as well. He has a Taunt, the Shield of Galakron, he has some lackeys to mess around with, and he has the package of this Krunks, Togwaggle Scheme, and Wand, whereas Bunnyhoppor now almost forced into this play to try and defend against the onslaught from Seiko. Shadows.
I think we should cover some bases here as well, just in case there are viewers watching who didn't see the Viper series, we were referencing heavily. Viper is actually coincidentally bringing this exact deck again this week. Because there's lots of questions, right? What are we talking about? We are talking about shuffling lots of copies of Kronks into your deck when you have a small deck size, and then playing Wondrous Wand, so you draw a bunch of them immediately. Now, the card Flick, which some of you might be thinking about, like why are we talking about Togwaggle's scheme being cool when both of these decks play the card Flick, which will blow everything up? That doesn't matter, because they all cost 0, and you just play a bunch of them in the same turn. So if you have a few minions on board, it's enormous burst damage with the buff. If you don't, it's enormous AoE if your opponent's in control, or it's just enormous health swing if you just deal 5, heal 5 a few times with your drawn guys.
I really like this sequencing as well from Seiko. He did hover the Rush Lackey and would probably had the idea of, okay, do I just rush in the 8/8 because it kills the bamboozle? Not like this. Not like this. The dream! Okay. I will say this is just a aggressive push from Seiko to try and end the game, right?
It is. And so what this means now is that... So Seiko's bailing on that combo opportunity I was talking about. A, because he feels like he's so far in control that he doesn't need that kind of late game plan anyway. But now also with the 2 copies of Kronks shuffled into Bunnyhoppor's deck, as soon as Bunny draws and plays the first one, if it gets to that point, Seiko can now flick it, because he doesn't have his own Kronkses to worry about, whereas that would not be an option for him otherwise. So he can deny the second one from deck if it comes down to that from Bunny. But Raven, I wanted to see the cool thing happen.
Me too. Maybe Viper does it later. Or not later.
Alright, fair enough.
But, you know, later this week. Of course, this is our last match of the day. Well, not the last match of Hearthstone. As Americas will be following up when we are done with this series. Sure to stay tuned.
Okay, Bunny. I want you to go back in time a little bit and think about how nutty your evolves were the entire week you played Shaman. Okay?
Yeah. Bunnyhoppor. What he has to do, honestly, just and just going all in. Didn't really have much choice, right?
Secret left in play is Dirty Tricks, meaning that Seiko will want to play as spell-free as he possibly can, since Bunny is so out of resources.
Yeah, I do like this sequence in here. I think Seiko was going to play Shield, but then realized he used up a lot of mana, and considering that's a good card. He has Shadow Step. He might have wanted to Shadow Step a Lucky that maybe did a bit more.
Sorry, can I just check? Is a 4/10 taunt that gets bigger every time it takes damage good against a board full of 1/1s?
I'm going to commit to a yes on that one, Sal. It's a tough one, but yeah, I'm going to commit. You know,
Just wanted to be sure.
Tough calls.
Yeah.
And the draw is Flick, which kills the 4/10. But that's all it does. There's no deeper meaning to this Sky Shift.
He did find the Rush Lackey, though, off the hero power, which means that Problem A and Problem B were both solved that turn. He is now fighting back on board just a little bit.
Actually, for Bunnyhoppor, Seiko does know the whole alphabet, which means there's plenty more where that came from. Still not even played this one yet. That's the one he wants to Shadow Step.
Is it cold in the shadows?
Okay, Seiko is running out of things that aren't spells, which is some amount of good news, at least for Bunnyhoppor, if he can stay alive.
He is threatening lethal, though, as well.
Yes, he is. That's the bad news. I was working up to that.
Never tell me news, Sol. The good news is everything's going great until I tell you this bad news.
No. Bad news sandwich, right? Everyone knows this tech. You say good news first, you hide the bad news in the middle, and then you end on more good news.
What's the good news for Bunnyhoppor? He's out of this game. It's over.
There's still 3 more games to play, Raven. That's the good news.
I nearly called you an optimist then, Subtle, but I think that would just be untrue. Seiko winning game number 2, getting off to a great lead here, and for him at least, it's all going to come down to this Priest. Everything on the line. Like I said, Seiko, one of the players who adopted Priest a lot earlier than most, did bring it last week as well to round 1 of round robin. That makes sense, kind of. So he is going to bring it here, and this is going to be the deck that he needs to get the win with to take this series down. Seiko currently 1-1 in the round robin phase of Grandmasters, whereas Bunnyhoppor is currently 1-0. Bunnyhoppor only playing 1 match last week. Will make up for it this week, I think. So again, Seiko, with a loss already against his name, would really love to just say, you know what, let's go up to 2-1. Let's not lose any more matches this time.
Yeah, for sure. But he might just have to work particularly hard for it. The Demon Hunter matchup is going to be the most straightforward one, but even that can get a little bit grindy. But if Bunnyhoppor were to pick up a few wins here and send it all the way, then this series has still got some serious legs in it, because both the Rogue matchup and the Priest Mirror are usually going to go the absolute distance, all the way down to the wire, all the way towards the last few cards in the deck, all the way towards fatigue.
Yeah, and I actually don't even think players have really explored the actual ways to win some of those matchup, because 1, they take so long to practice anyway, and 2, I feel like some players have some very different thoughts on it. We do see Seiko's Priest, a few differences from normal builds. 1 Holy Smite, only 1 Thought Steal, 1 Death, 1 Shadow Madness. But Seiko's gone back to the Moarg Artificers, which is definitely not a common place in the deck right as of today. And also just 1 Apotheosis. But I was just going to say, Sol, did you catch the Shaxi matchup last weekend? And his approach to Rogue versus Priest. It was although it didn't quite end how we expected, it was a very interesting approach. And Shaxi has a history of actually taking weird ways to win games with Rogue. But I just wonder what you thought of it. You've talked a lot about this match.
I have. I actually really felt disappointed when that game ended, because I wanted to see if Shaxi could outvalue Priest, because I've even said on air before that I don't think that is the way you're supposed to play the matchup. I don't think it's a thing that you're really able to do with Rogue. Maybe against different builds, like, you know, this is a one thought steal list, for example. Maybe that makes a difference in whether or not you can outvalue it with Rogue. But Shaxi has such a unique approach to trying to outvalue Rogue that, you know, maybe I could have learned something of being possible, but I still don't think Priest was out of that from a value perspective, and it's just, you know, the way it ended really kind of robbed us of that answer. Just before we get off Seiko's deck list, one other thing that's important about that list, I think, is 0 wild pyromancers, which really changes a lot of dynamics, both with Apotheosis and just also against some aggro matchups like Bunnyhoppor's Demon Hunter, for example.
Yeah, well, we do get to now dip into the mind of another great Hearthstone player and see how he wants to approach Rogue versus Priest as we get into game number 3 between Bunnyhoppor and Seiko. Seiko, this is for all the marbles and for a relatively quick match to end his day off here. Bunnyhoppor, on the other hand, this might be the first step into a long climb up a very large mountain to win this series back 3-2.
It for sure is, yes. Like I said, this is most likely going to be a long one. Even the Demon Hunter game that he has to win is not going to be straightforward. I take back this assessment. This might be slightly quicker than I thought. Never mind, there's a Shadow Word Death in hand. We're good, don't worry.
Oh, because
I'm just looking at a coin, a Shadow Step, and an Edwin Van Cleef, and like, you know what? Never mind. 2-1 next game. But no, there is a Shadow Word Death in hand for Seiko.
Also, with the Shadow Madness, you can mess with Hanar quite a lot. I've seen it a few times in this matchup where if there's loads of secrets like Freezing Trap, even Noble Sacrifice, weird stuff like that, where you could use the Shadow Jeweler Hanar to like proc those and then either bounce it back to you instead of the Rogue, or just deal damage to it to make it much more killable. As its current 5 health is quite high, tricky to deal with for most classes right now.
But Raven, have you ever Shadow Madnessed their Hanar and then cast their secrets that you've thought stolen from them and got additional secret value out of it?
Yes!
Okay, good.
I played a good chunk of Priest, actually, so yeah, I have experienced at least the level 1 shenanigans you can do against most classes. Even like, you know, the Steel 6 or Prime. Steel 6 or and then get the Prime and then so on. It's just like stupid stuff like that.
Yeah, I think Shadow Madness is the card that gets people the most. Obviously, there's much bigger gotcha moments with like randomly generated cards because you can't play around them to an extent. They're randomly generated. But in terms of the cards that start in the deck, Shadow Madness is probably the biggest gotcha card because, like you said, stealing primes. And, it's not just 6-or. There's Mage, various other matchups where it's relevant, where you can just steal their prime and put it in your deck instead. Not to mention just accidental, like, board states that you leave in a way where it's just a perfect full clear with the Shadow Madness that you haven't really considered. It's a really, really hard card to play around effectively.
Well, I love this play. So, Shadow Step the Hanar, it's free next turn. I think most importantly, he keeps the secret. The secret was Dirty Trick, sorry. He can prep for a very powerful Van Cleef a little bit later on. Do you think he's going to commit to this? Or do you think he just wants more secrets?
I'm unsure.
This is a long-term plan if he wants a big Van Cleef, because he would still need, 5 mana? If you want to go real big? So that's still 2 turns away.
Well, so I'm thinking it might not be like another secret that he's fishing for, but he might be potentially looking for a swing turn, for example, with like Hanar, play the secret, play the Blackjack Stunner, and then play the Edwin, but I don't know.
What about just the Stunner? Is that just good enough? Just put this Moab back in hand for 4 mana?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh. Would you like secrets with your secrets?
Choose soon. So many options.
So there's Pack Tactics, Dirty Tricks, and Redemption currently.
This is one of those weird issues, right? We talked about you can bounce the Hanar, You can set it up to deal damage, but you also have to weigh the likelihood, right, of anything that positive happening
I
versus
wonder.
Seiko now just going penance, and at least initially kill it off from what we can see.
Yeah, but then the redemption goes off, and then Seiko would have to attack into the redemption, which would then summon the pack tactics.
That's what I mean, right? Even though like the things you can do are very crazy and
What
powerful,
is a
but the real
loser?
question is whether you should, and whether it's actually
Yes.
going to turn out well, or whether it's just flashy, you know. And that's the tough part, right? Because these secrets could really change the outcome quite dramatically, depending on what they are. Funnily enough, if Seiko had one more mana, he could have just penced it now, so it does a redemption. Job done. Seiko, what do you think? Seiko's unhappy with that outcome?
Yes, extremely.
Not what he was looking for, was it?
No. It looks very, very silly, but obviously, like, I can see what the secrets were, and literally every play in Seiko's hand didn't work anyway when I knew what all the secrets were. Like, he could have attacked, and then that summons the pack tactics, and then he can Holy Nova. The Holy Nova's damage is doubled, so it clears both of the Hanars, but then the redemption still goes off at the end of all of that, so there's still a Hanar in play. We talked about the penance line. That still leaves a Hanar in play. Like, there just wasn't a play that turn. So whatever Seiko identified was the combination of secrets that his play was good against. Well, it wasn't that either.
And that's the problem when you start throwing in multiple different class secrets. Like, well, what if it was freezing trap? It would have been amazing. Like, it would have been a great play.
Yep.
But it wasn't. What if it was explosive? It still would have been a good play. But it wasn't. You know, it's very difficult to manage here. And as you said, Seiko didn't have too many options. I did wonder then whether Bunnyhoppor was going to just go for a very maybe straightforward Van Cleef instead of trying to go deeper on the secrets. And just go Stunner into Van Cleef and say it's now just a 1-2, a 1-5, and a 4-4 on board, which is a very awkward shaped board for Priest to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, just cash in on more of these secrets and trying to maybe upset Seiko even more as he has to deal with the outcome.
Wah wah.
This is where it gets tough to
So
work
many
out when it's
options.
correct to stop with the secrets. Because right now, Counterspell looks great, right? Counterspell stops now any spell follow-up, obviously, from Seiko and generates you another secret. But are you actually doing anything to progress the game when there's two
Right.
Shields of Galakron in hand? There's a Faceless Corruptor, which he could actually still just play on the 1-2 trade in and end the turn with a 4-4 and an R on the board. There's still Van Cleef to consider. And I think quite rightly at this point, Bunnyhoppor has chosen to go for the let's just play a game of Hearthstone for this turn instead of go crazy with the secrets, which I do really like. And I think this was the point he should do it.
Completely agree. This board is still protected by a pack tactics and a redemption.
Is it Bamboozle, the other one?
It's
Or
dirty
is
tricks.
it still Dirty Tricks? Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I wonder.
This timeline amuses me.
The Dragon Draw does activate this Chrono Breaker now, so that's kind of cool for Seiko at least. It does mean that now his Holy Nova and Breath will line up better into this board state.
He's choosing to go off with the Van Cleef now. Or maybe he wants to actually play his Van Cleef through that Cleef counter spell.
Sure,
Want to wait.
can get behind that.
Oh, I love Never Surrender. now Seiko's spell is not only going to not work, but going to buff his opponent's board. And you're like, come on, give me one of them.
Draw them cards.
Yeah, maybe that's a good thing for Seiko now, though.
Actually, does that interaction work like that? Counterspell, Dirty Tricks. Does it resolve and actually draw the cards? Because Counterspell usually blocks effects like that from happening, doesn't it?
Is that one of the ones where it depends when they're played?
Mm.
What is a loon's
I want to
will?
say it does work. A part of my
No,
brain
so
is telling me it's happened.
It shouldn't. Dirty Trick says after, and Counterspell says when, so it shouldn't work.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Part of my brain's telling me it has happened to people. I'm probably just making it up.
I mean, it might. I'm just saying. It shouldn't.
Just like Seal Fate's called Seal Fate. It is.
Yeah,
but it shouldn't
just
be.
like the card Seal Fate should have an of in it.
For the reason that Zottel says so.
Yes.
Oh, big value Gallican there. Is this? It's a strange Gallican, isn't it, the priest? Because there are
Yes.
actually drawbacks to playing it that I think are more so than most of the classes Gallicrons. Because now you just don't get to just press heal every turn. Yes, you generate big minions and almost infinite value, but now Bunnyhoppor can say, "Oh, can I just start hitting him in the face pretty hard," and then he just has very limited ways to heal up and be safe from certain pushes. It's just
Right.
interesting, isn't it? It's always a tough call when to just play Gallicron. You definitely don't just jam it on 7 every time as priest in some matchups.
Yeah, agreed. So is this it now? Counterspell is still in play.
Oh yeah. And also, that looks like a Christmas tree I've decorated on Bunnyhoppor's portrait there. Just a mess.
Choose soon.
Backstab your own 1/1, make the Edwin. Yeah, seems good.
Brotherhood shall not end.
And again, the 8/8 becomes more threatening. Wow. The 8/8 becomes more threatening because now there isn't heal either. So, although it's not damage permanence because there are heal spells in the deck,
Yeah.
it's not hero power just chugging away to negate some of this damage. It's a real
Right.
big deal. Now, what does Seiko even do? I wouldn't even know where to start. Maybe Breath of Infinite? Check the counter, and then you've got death guaranteed on a Van Cleave. Oh, I guess this works better, right? Because I just
Yeah,
wondered if we-
unfortunately, there's
further
multiple
heal.
layers because there is Counterspell and Spellbender in play here, Raven. So there goes one, there goes two. Confirmation that Dirty Tricks did not draw. He's going to draw off this one. There we go.
Okay, so there is a backup plan here. Seiko does have Soul Mirror and Penance. So he can make up the damage if the cleaves hit each other. Put them to 2, and then he can Penance. Or, oh no, he can't Breath of the Infinite next turn. So it would just be Soul Mirror and Penance to kill this Van Cleave. Oof. It's very tricky.
Yeah, I mean, that's not taking into account, pack tactics and noble sacrifice and all the things that can mess
Never
with
surrender.
attacks happening next turn. Yeah.
Getting very close to just saying secrets. Like the old days of casting Yogg-Saron, just saying the name of spells that happen.
Yeah.
Choose soon. So many options.
How about a new life? How about a new life?
Running up and now, just putting the clock on Seiko, saying you've got to do something magnificent to deal with this. He's gonna try.
For everything and everyone!
Yeah, and the Never Surrender was taken but not played here, which is kind of interesting.
Right into
Because your board, I would say, is pretty vulnerable to, targeted damage AoE, AoE for damage as opposed to hard removal, especially since you know your opponent has a Moarg in the hand, and especially since you know you have an extra ambush token that's going to be added to the board.
Yeah, and also the fact that in this outcome we can see the Hunter secret is the one that remains. There's not really a punish, right, with Hunter. There's nothing you're going to worry about from Seiko this turn, so he knows this
Right.
turn is always safe. And now that
Right.
Seiko has stabilized the board outside of this Hanar still causing havoc, now the fear kicks in if you're against Priest. Because Murazond
I wonder.
It's a very frustrating card to deal with. As
It
it's
is.
not only what you did, but also the added 8/8 as well.
But here's the thing. If you're smart and you know the matchup, it can be mitigated. Because just about anything that Seiko can Murazond, you can deal with. Because just kind of by definition of the cards, your boards are fairly equal, and you just have to deal with an 8/8, which, fair enough, you can probably do that, right? You have Blackjack Stunner in your hand. The one thing you just don't want to do is just play some insane card draw spell, right? Like, just don't pick Sprint and play Sprint for some reason. Don't pick Wondrous Wand and play Wondrous Wand, because when I talk about this matchup and say you can't outvalue the whole deck of the Priest, I still remains to be seen whether that can actually happen or not. But what you can do is outvalue their hand, and that's precisely what Bunnyhoppor is doing right now. Like, the difference in resources between the two hands is insane. So he can just keep working that grind for as long as he wants, because the Priest will just never get to draw cards as long as you don't let them with your Murazond.
Yeah, and this is where now, if that's the case, and that's the approach Seiko believes Bunnyhoppor is taking, then Seiko needs to focus on pressing his hero power every turn, so he can keep up. It's not the same because you're not drawing cards from your deck, but if you keep pressing it, you start getting pretty broken cards after a while, right? It's just likely. Some of the Priest cards are very, very strong. So if I was Seiko sat here and I saw this low outcome for Bunnyhoppor, i.e. just 5 power on board, I think I would really want to press that hero power. Breath of the Infinite now to clear the board. Is he that bothered about it, though?
Not overly, no.
I think hero power happens first, right?
Time is running out.
So you can just trade your 2/1 anyway, right? It's not that big of a deal.
Does he know what this secret is for sure?
He knows it's an attacker minion. He knows it's either Snake or Pack Tactics.
This is your time.
It's a Shadow Step played, wasn't it?
I will act as your skin.
Okay.
That's just funny.
You fell right into my trap.
What a weird turn.
So Bunnyhoppor at least has the luxury of being able to deal with these secrets because he knows what they are. Not quite as impactful when you don't have to play around every secret in the game. Yep. Seal of Fate the minion with 1 health because that works when you know it's got Never Surrender.
Yep.
I like it. That is fully invoked Galakron now for Bunny. Again, Galakron is a card draw card that you can happily play because the card draw comes from a battle cry which Murazond does not replicate.
Right into my trap.
Gotta be careful though. Is his Galakron fully evoked? Sorry.
Yes, it is.
So he does get in the weapon though, right?
Hmm?
Wait, oh no, he won't. What am I talking?
No, that's also a battle cry.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, he won't get in the weapon.
You literally just become Rogue
Just the-
Galakron.
yeah.
It's very weird. Yeah.
Not much fanfare for that one, is there?
No.
Don't let the
Do you like the stunner though? Pretty low impact minion, although it gives Seiko more stuff to play in hand. It's just a nice tempo play and also 7 mana for a 4/5. It doesn't really impact the board that much. It's a pretty big deal.
You've just seen ambush tokens just trade with each other before. I think that might be a first for me, Raven.
Same actually. This is where you start doing mental gymnastics every turn and decide whether Murazond is good or bad.
Yes.
Wait, what did my opponent play? Does this work?
Also
I
from-
think?
Also from Bunnyhoppor's side,
Yeah.
right? It's so scary. Like right now, like normally you play this matchup kind of scared of Murazond, because it's one of the key cards. But Bunny has seen it get Shadow Step, so he literally knows any turn he plays is able to be replicated from Seiko's side. So every card he plays, he has to. Is this too good? Is this too
And also,
good? Is this
most
too good?
importantly, going off what you said earlier about Murazond being the same but an 8/8 extra.
Yes.
Well, it's not for 6 mana now, is it? Because there's follow-up. Seiko could
Right.
play with 4
Right,
mana
right.
spare. That's a decent amount. I imagine holding over with Morazan this turn, he clears tons of the board off and builds the board himself. I'm not saying he should have done it, but it's the kind of idea where being only 6 mana, which Bunnyhoppor is aware of, means that he knows. Sorry, as I just punched my microphone. Apologies. Which means he knows that there's a potential swing, like a real swing turn.
I never
I'll
lie.
play that Colossus afternoon.
All right, place your bets, Raven. Will this Hanar be alive at the end of the game?
Yes.
It seems to just be Shadow Jeweler, Hanar, and the cockroaches right now, just surviving everything.
Whoa! There you go. I was waiting for that noise. That's the subtle noise when Galakron draws Tog and Cross. It's 2 out of 2 times now today.
I'm sorry? I mean, I guess it was on the other side last time. I guess that's fair.
Speak of fairness in Hearthstone, subtle.
Alright, good point.
It's just a really close go.
So as long as it... Okay, there you see it. Exactly what I was talking about. Don't take the card draw.
Do you like the prophecy? Yeah.
Yeah, you just play everything.
Yeah. But then they can play everything with Morazan.
But everything that you've done that was good was a battle cry this turn.
Yep.
Which means they just get a bunch of minions that are slow, and you hit them in the head again.
Seiko could get a Hanar with Soul Mirror.
Just gonna no-sell that and move on.
I like that response.
You think this is your time? It is mine.
Just doesn't do enough, right?
You don't have spell damage, right?
His return is nigh.
Nice. Nice.
He does gain the ability to discover a secret now with this ethereal lackey.
From nothing.
There's only so long left in this game, Raven. If I waste all of it by putting in pointed moments of silence to the stupid ideas that you come up with, we're gonna see. We did it. We did it. We missed the end of the game, Raven. Honestly, shocking. You made me do that. Jeez.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the end of the game was literally Seiko discovering a secret from ethereal lackey and then conceding. So if anything, I'm correct. But most importantly, I think a very well-piloted game there from Bunnyhoppor. Again, a matchup we discussed was very tricky and hard to navigate, especially on the rogue side.
Yeah, and that's, you know, Raven, I've talked to you about this matchup a lot. I find this matchup weirdly
Sick of it,
fascinating for some reason. That is my experience with the matchup, which is why I was so fascinated in what was happening in the Shaxi series, where he was coming at it from such a completely different angle. Whereas if Rogue is to win, and I'm not saying Rogue is favored, I think if anything, I think Priest has a slight edge in the matchup from where I'm sat. But if Rogue is to win, they have to do something like that, which is be annoying early, so the Priest is on the back foot, and then find yourself a scam turn with Heist Baron Togwaggle, with Galakron, with all of those things in the same turn, plus Kronks. And then, you just do way too much in one turn and they're not able to deal with it, as well as all the finer nuances of making sure you limit their Morazan options as much as you possibly can. So I'm happy to at least see Bunnyhoppor play the matchup in a way that makes sense to me, as opposed to the Shaxi way, which, while also clearly very effective for him, is so far removed from my experience in the matchup.
Yeah, and funnily enough, the way that made the most sense to me was actually Viper creating a Cho and just filling the hand with spells. So I think that was the one that really spoke to me on a deep level. Was that
even Rogue?
Yeah, because he was backstabbing, right? They were backstabbing.
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
Let's go into it. It's going to be the Priest Mirror. We expected this all along. Get your blanket, get your comfy clothes ready, make a fresh drink, buckle in, because it's probably going to be a long one.
This one's going all the way.
Although we do talk about and maybe overly joke about how long this matchup can or will be, there is some nuance to the end game, because effectively what happens in my experience at least, Sol, is you both get to the end game fairly consistently, you both have Galakron live, and you start generating these minions. And really for me, it's almost similar to how the Rogue mirror performs, close, in that one player ends up sticking a board that can't be either removed or matched because maybe a player's not discovered as many chunky minions, maybe there's just more Disciples of Galakron and some of the smaller end of the Priest output, and then they start hitting them, and because you are Galakron, your access to heal is fairly limited, and then you start just dying. And that's how the ending of the game really plays out. But
Have you ever seen a faster thought steal in your life?
no. That's the quickest thoughts. Oh my. Just look at the hands already. What happens if a Mind Flayer eats a Mind Flayer that ate a Mind Flayer? Are we going to find out?
So, yeah, I mean, before I got distracted by Seiko's fastest decision in his entire life, I agree with that assessment, yeah. A lot of the time it does get to the point where one person has out-resourced the other and they do get to stick a board because of that. But there is the other ending, which is a legitimate fatigue ending, which is legitimately possible. And in that case, there's kind of other things that you have to look out for as well. For example, you can generate Reliquary Primes, or, you know, the card that shuffles Reliquary Prime into your deck. You also have ways to shuffle cards like Grave Room. You also have the option of your opponent having Shadow Madness to steal away those reliquaries from one player and get them into the other player's deck, which extends their fatigue count. So there's all sorts of nonsense that can happen in this matchup, essentially. And you have to very quickly identify which road you're kind of going down and play to that accordingly. Bunnyhoppor here actually flicked a tempo switch pretty quickly by dropping an early Apotheosis and just trying to beat Seiko up a bit with it, which was a bold move, should we say.
It is, and it's one of the points as well where in the late game, if you are generating fairly large minions, Amet can come into it as well with making large minions out of any minions in terms of health. Dropping the Apotheosis can really snap back a health differentiation. Stumble over my words. A health difference, I'll just go with. Because you are playing with kind of just big derpy minions in the late game, and that's going to gain you a lot of health back. Although Seiko is only running, I believe, 1, and Bunnyhoppor is running 2.
You are correct.
Yes, I thought so. Yeah, so although Bunnyhoppor used 1, he is arguably even now in terms of number of Apotheosis in his deck.
Yeah, which is why that Thought Steal was incredibly important for Seiko off the rip, right? Because he only plays one of those as well. So instantly discovering a second one, again, brings him back to parity in terms of value in the deck alongside Bunny, who is playing 2 natural copies of Thought Steal in his deck.
And it really is, for me, an extension of just Seiko's approach to this week. We saw his Rogue with more anti-aggro tools, and his Priest has more anti-aggro tools and less of the value tools. The only problem is, if he does run into this matchup and some of the other slower ones, he's at more of a natural disadvantage because he's running like, what's a Holy Smite going to do in this matchup? Nothing. Whereas he is, an Apotheosis down, Thought Steal down, as you mentioned. So maybe Seiko has to be the one who does something a little bit crazier. He's just going to at least card for card not have it quickly. Bunnyhoppor just all in on this Acolyte of Galakron. Sorry, Disciple.
Yeah. But I was going to say, like, weirdly, it's Bunnyhoppor who's kind of playing his cards and just, actually playing for tempo on the board a little bit, which it would seem like him with the slightly greedier build of the deck has the luxury that he could be the one sat back, prepared to go super long if he wants to. There is kind of the signal. I was talking about having to sort of read context clues as to how to play in this mirror. Bunny doesn't have Galakron in his hand right now. As far as he knows, Seiko might. We can see that he does. In which case, he's going to get grinded out real quick if his Galakron is, bottom 10 cards, for example. So maybe that's a signifier that means you should go a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah,
Plague of Death is
and if
very
he's going to
good.
draw double Apotheosis, then do you want to just hold that forever? Right? It's one of those things like maybe why not play it? One thing I mentioned as well is the one thing I've seen in the mirror come out to play is the Galakron Hero Power generates minions, not spells. So the Sethic Veil Weavers, when you generate a spell when you target a minion with a spell. It creates a random spell. Those become quite valuable because it's one of the ways you can generate extra actual removal in the late game. Because I've had the games that have gone to fatigue where it's like, well, my minions don't beat your minions, and I don't have a Plague of Death generated, or a Shadow Word Death, or an AoE, or something like that, right? And one of the ways you can do that is save the Sethics until you can actually almost force extra generation from them by just forcibly saving them to combo with targeted spell.
Sure. And that's where weird stuff like, generating a grave rune for your generated reliquary of souls that I was talking about earlier comes into as well, right? Just getting random nonsense that your opponent's not able to play around. Seiko's Discover on that turn. I think Plague of Death is actually pretty valuable in the matchup. Mind Vision is, of course, just a decent high value card. I do think Mind Control still, even in this matchup, in my experience, is too slow. So I'm happy not to see that one get taken.
Agreed. You got to look at what are the best cards, or what are the most valued cards. Katrina Muerta. Well, if you Mind Control that, they have the thing they're rezzed, and then you're behind. And then that's and then they just kill it and move on, play another minion. So I do agree, and also as well, a small thing about the pick is Mind Vision is playable right now. If you start like only taking cards for the uber late game now,
yes,
well, Cycle's hand's going to be full and you can't play cards, right? So it's again another thing you have to consider when you're playing this matchup is not only what are the best cards to win the end game, but you can't just not play the mid game. You've got to do something, or you're going to start overdrawing.
Sorry. I've genuinely never in my life seen this. Seiko is fully invoked Galakron on turn 7 with Priest.
That's actually pretty impressive.
That is.
I don't think I've ever fully invoked Galakron as Priest. I'm not even joking. That's probably a fact.
I will not go that far. I have definitely done it, but not on turn 7.
I want to start generating minion gamer. So I just press Galakron whenever.
Kronk's Time Rip. That's the good stuff right there.
And we're edging towards the problem of hand size. There's a lot of... I am a prophet. A lot of the plans we've discussed, and there are many plans and outcomes and possibilities with this matchup, if you try and prepare for them all and store up cards for them all, well, you lose because you can't. It's impossible. And now we're going to see the players have to navigate what can I throw away? What can I just get okay value from? Very similar, or not very similar, but similar-ish to the old Control Warrior mirrors, where you just try and throw a brawl away on nothing, or just use cards just so they're gone, as opposed to anything else. And it is similar, except more often you do eke out some level of value from these cards. You're not literally like not that you can, but like penancing your own face or something, just to play a card.
Again, I talked about how Shadow Madness is one of the biggest gotcha cards in the deck in most matchups. Doubly so in this one. You can see already, Mind Flayer Kaj is always a Shadow Madness target. If that reliquary nonsense starts to happen, that's always, of course, a big problem if Shadow Madness is still available. There's so many things you have to play around constantly in this matchup.
Seiko also has the Scarlet Noodle, what I call it, with the -2 attack, which means he can actually lower something that shouldn't be Shadow Madness down.
Yes.
I can't remember the card. The rest
Subjugator.
Yes, that'll do. So there's the age-old combos of Shrinkmeister, Cabal Shadow Priest style stuff.
The future is clear. Your demise be near.
We gotta see Natalie Celine get a Natalie Celine. Is this just going to become like the Russian dolls matchup, where everything affects?
Yeah,
itself?
it does happen. It happens a surprising amount actually. That the same card just gets hit with the same card. Yes, exactly. Like things just stack on each other. That wasn't a particularly bad news, Lazul. I like to call this card Wade Barrett because it just shows up and says, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. But here, that wasn't too punishing, the contents of the hand. Bunnyhoppor's probably looking at that and going, okay, I can deal with that. Unfortunately, the other cards that he didn't see are incredibly good. Murazon, Soul Mirror, Shadow Madness. Huge cards in the matchup.
But again, it's starting to get a little bit tricky. Look at Bunnyhoppor's hand. Time Rip. Well, that generates another card, right? So he's got 2 Time Rips that replace themselves in hand. When's he going to cast them?
Yeah.
Now we're going to see Celine, and I hope we see another one next.
My blood be born again.
Is that really a 1/2?
It did, yeah. It was an Apotheosis 1/2 at the time, but it ate it all right.
Could be the big play of it's not going to happen, but Shadow Madness the 1/2 trade in, and then Galakrond.
Whoa!
I mean, hand space is a real issue. Maybe you just Cabal Shadow Priest this 1/2. I don't know. It's getting really tough because, as I said, you can't save every card for the most value because then you will lose. Yeah. So you have to work out what is enough or what is good enough to just throw away for terrible value. Like maybe a Shadow Madness on a 1/2. Maybe Cabal in just a 1/2 that does nothing instead of like, oh, let's Cabal something crazy, you know, like a Mohawk or something impactful. I don't know. It gets really difficult in the game. And I feel like whenever you misstep in this mirror, you come that much closer to losing. I feel like you can just lose if you overspend or underspend cards.
I love how, based on all of that, this solves like none of those problems. Right. He just played a card and got 2 cards from it.
Yeah, now if you play Shadow Man, this is going to get another card, so he has to play Breath of the Infinite.
Yep.
Is that just bad ordering?
It was a janky looking turn, for sure.
Should he have just done the Sethic, like, after it, maybe? Or just not even played the Sethic? I don't know, Solar. I'm already lost, which, I'll be honest, was likely to happen in this mirror.
Well, you saw just from Bunnyhoppor's actions, he started the turn with the Sethic Veilweaver and then was going to Shadow Madness, but then bailed out of that idea. But at that point, the Sethic was already on the board. So I think he probably did get in a bit of a mess as to what he wanted to do that turn.
Again, 2 Moags. Don't really do much, but... And evil. Dude. That replaces itself. It's just... He definitely doesn't want to Shadow Madness the Sethic.
That's an absolute lad right there.
Just
a card that you can play that does good things.
Subjugate?
Seems fine. Oh, Cabal Shadow Priest #1. It's not a real card in his deck, but again, every Priest card has to be considered in this matchup wherever possible. And that's a fairly juicy looking target. 2/5 Death Rat will give you a lackey.
But does Bunnyhoppor want more cards, Saul? Is this actually Seiko's plan all along? To overwhelm Bunnyhoppor's hand with juicy targets?
Yeah. How invoked is Bunny? He's 3 out of 4. Okay.
Maybe he doesn't want... yeah, okay. I was wondering whether he could just play it, but it's only a kill 2, isn't it?
Yes, precisely. That's why I was checking. Yeah. Same thought process.
Ooh, the evolve to a 7-drop's probably not too shabby here for the Cabal. And this is where we're starting to get to that point where each player can't actually clear the board every turn. So now we start getting to like the slugfest of just minions hitting each other until someone wins.
Yes, but that's the problem, is like no one very quickly establishes the right to go face.
Right, exactly.
Because you don't have the aggression to back that up. So although you can't clear board with removal spells, both players are just playing minions that they then use to clear the board,
right.
And the opponent is kind of playing into that strategy as well. So there's just this tacit agreement that everything trades. Venture Co-Mercenary is probably less than ideal. Okay, Sentinel. If you're holding a dragon, +1 attack and lifesteal, it's a 1/4.
And you also have to value lifesteal cards, right? Once Galakrond is live, because if this game's going to fatigue, if it's going to that kind of late game, lifesteal is worth something here.
Fair enough.
Time the turn. Just use the Holy Smite with the rest of his venture go and save the weapon. It's like a good enough steal for me, Subtle. With the Cabal Shadow Priest on the 2/4.
Does, yeah.
Maybe you just time rip it. Get that card out of your hand. Also, this
nothing super high value off the renew.
Yeah, the Shadow Word Ruin in Bunnyhoppor's hand is actually very high value right now, because you do end up trying to make a board full of just big dudes, and having a one card, I'll say AoE, if you understand my meaning, is very powerful. It's not something you actually run in the deck.
Yeah.
I'm into Shield of Galakrond into Lackey's not a horrible play.
No, and I'm curious whether Seiko was looking to see some more, Cabal Shadow Priest and Shadow Madness like effects before he committed this Armet to the board, because it did look like there was a couple of turns where it seemed fairly strong, but he's held back on it because, again, as a 2/7, it's so vulnerable to those priest yoink effects. So he'll get a renew spell here, as well as just a couple of minions. Sure. Yeah, Whispers of Evil's pretty good. Free Lackey. That's
More
value.
card generation.
Yep.
Time is running out.
Still not time to smack a minion with this claw, apparently.
Saving it for the fatigue. Pretty decent time rip. Often at this point in the game, time rip becomes actually good, because normally you're behind and you sort of just time ripping the biggest threat out of a few threats.
Yeah.
Whereas Bunnyhoppor being able to play this off and push up on the board if he really wants to. Pretty good here. He's actually able to stick this board for more than one turn. Pretty big deal. And
he's finally got some space in his hand. He can actually start partying with over the coming turns. He now has fully invoked Galakrond as well. Seiko, on the other hand, has really not got to get that much value out of his Galakrond up to this point, again because of hand size concerns. I say maybe that's what just the aggressive Apotheosis dumps were about, like way back at the start for Bunnyhoppor, right? Like maybe even on turn 2, he was just considering having space in his hand for as long as possible.
it's big deal. It's one of the things I mentioned as well, that are you going to sit with 2 Apotheoses in hand for most of the game if you're going to save it, right? I think playing it just as a threat was nice. Also, small change there in the fact that like Galakrond style cards can be discovered now from Galakrond. So it's a big win.
Yeah, considered it premium enough to take it over Dragon Queen Alexstrasza in a matchup where Dragon Queen Alexstrasza is going to get active. But again, you don't want too many cards just sat in your hand waiting for the perfect moment. You want playables. Fate Weaver certainly ticks that box.
Wretched Reclaimer is a big deal, mainly because there's a few cards we've not seen, Subtle. The Convincing Infiltrator with Wretched Reclaimer and Grave Ruin as well, cards like that. It's actually pretty clutch. 'Cause-
Reliquary of Souls. I'm
yeah.
gonna keep bringing it up.
Yeah, the pretty big deal. So Wretched Reclaimer, although low value as just a card in Hearthstone, in this matchup, in this deck, can actually get a good amount of work done.
Yep, agreed.
I am beyond imagination.
Oh, Bunnyhoppor going to clear the board his way with the Galakron, but spend 7 of his mana and not actually really develop any minions. Does the payoff though get hero power and have a floor ready, and there's one of the good ones.
Instant Katrina Muerte.
Psycho
Act as
now
your scape.
can always mirror it, right?
Again.
Oh, my.
Again!
Seiko, whatever Bunnyhoppor plays, now when it comes to the big minion wars, Seiko can just duplicate it and get an 8/8 extra. And as I said...
Multiple times.
Yeah, but as we're starting to see now, that I talked about earlier, is they're running low on spells. Because you don't really get to generate spells without Sethek. And now, yeah, they both have Soul Mirror. But that's, especially in this matchup, normally leaves stuff over, because a lot of the minions are higher health and attack. But then there's the Shadowword Ruin, fantastic for Bunnyhoppor. A Penance. And that's it. And now there's a Shadow Madness
Soul
and a Soul
Mirror,
Mirror.
question mark? Yeah.
We are getting to the point where
That's why-
spells are premium.
Yes. And it's why I sort of questioned all the way back, like, maybe Plague of Death early on over the Mind Vision that was chosen. Again, can't have too many dead cards stuck in your hand the entire time.
Right.
But if you're going to carry one, Plague of Death is a pretty good one.
If you could take one priest spell on a desert island with you,
Yeah.
which one would it be? Plague of Death. I'd be like, what?
Yes.
Not Renew. Not anything like that. Plague of Death. Oh, there's the convincing infiltrator as well. Bunnyhoppor now honestly starting to piece together the key tools. Big threats combined with removal.
What about?
Just make an Amet board.
Not bad Armet board, is it?
And he has enough low cost, low attack things to do it with as well that are going to greatly benefit from the extra health.
Submit, heretic.
Wait, really? Why that one? I'm curious. Is Murazon casting a card that I'm not aware?
Or is he going to steal the 2/4? And then he wants to attack with it?
My blood be born again.
Just getting it out of his...
Right, but why not the 3/6? This he only reduced 1 power on board instead of 2. I'm just curious. There must be like an actual reason for that, right?
Does he want Bunnyhoppor to have it stuck on board?
Mm.
Is that ever... I don't know. I'm just guessing.
Oh, Soul Mirror maybe takes up a space.
Like I said, it is...
Curious.
A little bit of a pain. Definitely a strange play, though. Also,
Too late.
the nature of Seiko just having to play stuff is just another very mediocre Murazon, right? Like the Murazon made a board, or helped make a board, but it was a board of trash.
We are all bound to.
Sorry, how good do you expect Murazon to be? That looked pretty good to me.
Oh yeah, I mean compared to other matchups, sorry. You know, like where you end up doing crazy things, whereas this is just Murazon stuff. Because I need to play something that gets a card out of my hand.
Yeah. There's no Skull of Gul'dan Wondrous Wand. There's none of that business.
Right.
Not that you would want
Slam.
it in this matchup anyway.
Yeah, true. Oh, Master
Nice.
Spell.
Very tasty looking Mind Player card.
Oh, and a Shadowword Ruin for Seiko.
Yeah, I love this Wretched Reclaimer timing as
Yeah,
well.
there we go.
Just kind of max out some tempo here. get some threats in play, make sure that if you do get that Shadow Madness or whatever else, you've already got some value out of it.
Now Bunnyhoppor has the mana to soul and follow up. It's a very soul mirrorable board.
What if
Soul Mirable? Is that what you said?
Mirable's cousin.
Now that's Soul Mirable.
We're not going to get better.
No.
In terms of just clean clears, and Bunnyhoppor can discover some spells, or generate some spells. He gets his Sethic. Oh,
Ooh, embalming.
another spell.
Okay.
Let's try more Poacher. Is that card, or is that a different card?
Overseer.
Oh,
Your demise be near.
I'm torn, Sol. Not between the picks, but whether I can choose between this matchup actually being very entertaining or soul destroying at the same time. Because I just don't know. Because now Bunnyhoppor's just got another soul mirror because Seiko had a soul mirror.
Yep.
And it's a never-ending circle. They're both
So it's
on
interesting,
exactly the same card count as well.
He could have had a Murazon there, which kind of speaks to the matchup, right? The Bunnyhoppor chose a Soul Mirror over a Murazon. It kind of speaks to, like, Murazon's okay, but it's not like the blowout that you, as you were saying, that you see in some other matchups.
Right.
Skeletal Dragon. This is the unit that you need. You want as many of these as possible. Four attack, taunt, infinite value generation. This just ticks all the boxes in the matchup.
But there is Infiltrator, and there is a Grave Rune now, Sol.
maybe
Yeah, it's dangerous though. Generally, when I've played this matchup, I don't necessarily want to set up anything like that unless I can like cash it out immediately somehow. Because otherwise, you've just made a 2/6 with two more 2/6s inside it, which Shadow Madness, Cabal Shadow Priest, etc., 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 all that kind of nonsense. And now Bunnyhoppor has to think very hard about the symmetry of every board he makes because he has confirmed that his opponent has a Soul Mirror.
time is running out.
Should have Galacron fits pretty well, right? Enough threat onto the board. He's going to Grave Rune Lazul.
Sure. I mean, that's the other way to look at it, right? It's just like
Stuff.
use it, but don't put it on anything that's too blowouty, because then if it gets stolen, well, it's also not too much of a blowout for your opponent.
The power of this Master Spell, so that does a lot of
Pretty
stuff
good.
right now.
Pretty good. Pretty.
Hello, Bunnyhoppor.
Pretty
I'm waving too. I'm not really. What about Murzend?
What about Murazon, Draven?
Pretty bad.
What about
Could Master Spell and Soul Mirror? Just call it a day.
Yeah, I don't think you want to be playing a Murazon here because Grave Rune is any minion, right? So you can just Grave Rune one of your opponent's minions again.
time is running out?
There it is.
Okay, that changes things. I was just worried that this Sethic just living is a huge boon to Bunnyhoppor right now.
Yeah.
Because
That's fair.
he's allowed to do things that you're not normally allowed at this point in the mirror. And Seiko not killing it, I think, is a question. Now, with Cabal Shadow Priest, obviously he can flip that round again. But still, like, Bunnyhoppor, look at this. He has access to pretty good spells, and that can continue with a second Grave Rune. Or Shadowwood Rune if he really wants to just... Oh, that doesn't target, sorry.
Oh, this is silly. Whispers Weevil again. So, the one thing that Seiko does have going in his favour, well, I mean, there's a couple of things he has going in his favour, but the big one is you were talking how the card counts are even. Actually, Bunnyhoppor's that half card ahead that I sometimes describe, where he is fatiguing first. So that is advantage Seiko, and it is pressure on Bunnyhoppor to make something happen, because if he doesn't, he will lose the fatigue bonus.
Yeah, it does sound maybe a little bit too grounded when we just say, oh, the fatigue's even. Well, technically, if that was the case, then both players would draw if they stopped playing the game right now and passed every turn. But that's not the case, right? Because it would happen to one player first. You are completely right, Subtle, as you are.
And I thought you were going to give me a genuine compliment then. So I love this setup from Bunny. He clearly, I think he has about the right level of respect for the random nonsense that happens in this matchup. He didn't just put his Grave Rune on his Convincing Infiltrator. You know, even though that doesn't necessarily get punished by cards that Seiko is playing, he has, I believe, one Shadow Madness left natural to his deck, although it's very hard to keep track in this matchup, so apologies if that's wrong. But he knows the threat of randomly generated things can punish him in that spot. So he's hedging really nicely, right? He's using the Grave Runes, but he's putting them on suboptimal minions. And then he's just playing like the juicy Cabal Shadow Priest or Shadow Magnus target just separately, just as a minion. Right. Just really nice hedging.
I see a dark.
And also, it's 10 damage. It's not like he's not putting any damage on board, right? It's 10, right? That's a reasonable sum. Look at this. Oh, the combo. The Amma into Soul Mirror due to reduction to what just happened. Seiko has a board. Bunnyhoppor still has a board?
Still has a board, yeah.
Oh, wow.
The answer to what just happened, Raven, is nothing. Nothing really happened that turn. We just kind of moved on. I did miss getting excited about Armet Soul Mirror combo. Were we on cast when I was getting excited about this and it didn't happen last time?
I want to say yes, because if not, I'm not really sure who you were
Oh,
casting
no,
with.
I'll tell you what it was. We were in the waiting room watching APAC finish, and it was in APAC that it happened, but they didn't make that play.
That's safe.
Armet Soul Mirror is sweet.
That wasn't when we were talking, and I'm more annoyed about who you were talking to. So.
I'm allowed to talk to other casters?
Not have fun whilst doing so, no.
Oh.
Time is running out.
You're like, oh, we're going to make a few calls.
Yeah.
You think this is your time?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there goes the Armet.
I'm running out of words, so I'm not going to lie.
Well, is anyone in chat figuring out why the top players on ladder just concede this matchup on site?
Yes. In this amount of time, you probably could have played 3 other games of Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And it's not over yet. I think it's the key point as well.
Maybe.
You know what I wonder? Someone should do this. Q Priest. I guess you'd have to be high-ish legend. Q Priest, and only take your wins versus mirror matches after this weekend. As in, like, just keep queuing until you get people to concede the mirror match and see how far you can climb or drop. Would be great.
Sure. The steel didn't proc the summoned minion effect from Armet there. It's kind of interesting. He stole the 2/2 and it didn't get 5 health. Stealing a minion isn't summoning it, apparently.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm okay with it.
I'll give the pass. Stamp of approval, signed up.
It was already summoned, you just moved its position on the board, right?
Yeah. Remember minions used to just swap places sometimes?
Yes, I do. That's a very random non sequitur to throw in at this point, but yes, I do remember that, Raven.
We are all bound to fate.
Render Vargas was literally the hardest card to play in the game.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, Bunnyhoppor's making his hand cost 0.
He is, but losing access to his armor is kind of a big problem for dealing with this board state. Seiko still has one. Means that, you know, they can keep trading these weird, like, Soul Mirror turns back and forwards and copying each other, Soul Mirror into Murazond, and then Murazond into Soul Mirror, and then Soul Mirror into Murazond. But one of these players has an armor. Based on his board positioning, which Seiko could now engineer, like moving his Armet further to the right by playing minions to the left of it. That means if he gets Soul Mirrored again, then the Armet doesn't summon until later in the chain. Ooh. Okay. 5/4 Divine Shield. I'll take it.
I just
There
love
is
the
Psycho's
fact
now.
Go on.
Go on.
Oh,
No,
my
you.
point was not interested. So go on.
Okay. I was going to say that's Psycho's natural copy of Thoughtsteel now, which is the only one he plays in the deck. He does have hand space to play it this turn if he would like to, and he does want to get it cast pretty soon, because obviously if he waits too long now, he's just not going to get value out of it whatsoever.
Does he ever just rip this Master Spell? I think so. It's a card draw which sucks, but it just unlocks the whole board for him to just trade away and get ahead. Wait, how much damage does he have?
4, 6, 8, 9,
20,
12, 15,
22?
20, 22. Yep.
Imagine if it was just a... Wait, does...
Reborn mechanics.
Should Psycho ever go face here? With the majority of his... Yeah, I like this. I like this. Put the pressure on. He heals up to full, and now Bunnyhoppor with his silenced minions doesn't have the death rattle protection of the board refill. So now the onus is very much on Bunnyhoppor to do something. As I mentioned way back in the day, at the start of this game, that heal becomes much more difficult once Galakrond's been played, unless you're just going to rip a Radiance out of a heal as well. So I do like this approach from Seiko, finally turning up the heat.
Yeah, so Seiko exchanged his half a card fatigue advantage for like an 18-point health differential, right? Which I guess makes sense. The problem to that is whether or not Bunny's going to be able to heal some of that content back, in which case suddenly you're in trouble, because if Bunny can answer the board and gain a little bit of healing back, then that fatigue has flipped on its head. But I certainly respect the aggressive push for sure from Seiko. It seemed, I was talking about like feeling entitled to go face as kind of a weird abstract concept earlier. That's kind of a more crystallized example of it. That was the first turn Seiko felt like he was entitled to go face in the matchup, so he did so.
We are going to see, and this is one of the points where I think it was very valid as well, is because look how actually hard this board is to clear. It's actually trade, Soul Mirror for things to actually happen here. I don't even know the outcome of the rest of this turn. Shadow Adversity trade into the Amet, I imagine, was the turn.
Yep. He got a Thoughtsteel from the Sethic. Now the Armet only has 1 health. So the Soul Mirror from Seiko's Murazond here is much less effective than it would be otherwise. He did just pick up Kronks, though.
He could Kronks and then silence copy it, right? To get 2 6/6s on the board with the AoE clear.
Kronks silence copy. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty solid.
Everything. I mean, just putting 2 6/6s. I mean, we can see the Shadow Word Rune, of course, so it would be answerable very easily from Bunnyhoppor. But
yeah,
I think it's a very valued player, especially if Psycho's still got in his mind that he's going to be able to push even more damage.
Maybe.
Go for it if he's making the trade. Oh.
You think this is your time?
Okay.
all right, more Soul Mirrors, just what we always wanted. Power Infusion, +2/+6. Seiko even going to get this turn off. Looking like he's scrambling. He's going based on the webcam right now. He doesn't look upset with the turn, so I'm guessing he got it all off. No, all right, looks good. Looks good. Seiko really needs to find a way to get cards out of his hand. This Thought Steal needs to be cast. There are 3 cards left in Bunnyhoppor's deck. Actually, Bunnyhoppor, same. Everything I just said with the names reversed.
Reversed?
Yeah.
Bunnyhoppor
needs to get this Thought Steal cost.
Oh, you don't want me to reverse
left
his
in
name?
Seiko's deck.
I was like,
Yeah,
Roppa
yeah.
Okays.
Pretty good. Pretty good, actually. And Seiko?
I just said, okays.
Okay, so yeah. I was reading it O-Kiss.
Suggest that on cameras. Mind Flayer to the 100th version of the day.
Yep.
Is mainly just it's an 8/8. Is there a way to steal? Like, not right now. For all Bunnyhoppor knows, there's 100 ways in his hand.
Yes.
Care to dance with death?
I did wonder whether he ever just penanced his own 3/3 just to get it out there. How much damage does he have? 5? 6. Not quite.
18 with Power Infusion as well.
Oh, sorry. Yep, you are right. I didn't even look.
What if?
He did it, Sal. Does he get a golden star?
He does. 2 invoke cards. That is a lot of value that he just Thought Stole.
Also, he has the very nice and cheap Shadow Word Death to just kill off this Katrina Murta. I think, again, if he wants to go aggressive because he has Crunk sitting in his hand. Oh, this is nice.
Yeah, the Shadow Word Ruin makes sense. Since he couldn't steal the card, he had to deal with it.
Could try and go wide for the board now. You can use a 1-drop and the Primal Explorer and the other 1-drop. And then say, well, I have Galakrond if they live.
Don't keep your thoughts to yourself.
Ooh, it never ends! Oh, I just got, you know, like when you get those weird shudders, like a tingly, scary feeling.
Uh-huh.
You know what I thought about? What if people put Elysiana in this deck? I'm not even joking. I actually just had a shiver.
Yep.
Ooh. Maybe I shouldn't have even said that on air.
What if?
We're not far away, Raven. If Priest overperforms and like Face Hunter underperforms this week, we're genuinely not that far away from that happening.
We get a decision on whether we can just hand both these players a loss.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you play Priest, you lose. Don't bring it next week.
Is that Pyro coming in clutch for Bunny, just being able to take care of what is otherwise a pretty annoying board state for Priest to deal with. And now, suddenly, you see Bunny has climbed all the way back up to 26 again, which suddenly makes Seiko's decision to cash out his half-card fatigue advantage into a race advantage starts to make it look a little bit questionable.
Seiko does have a bit of a special card up his sleeve, though, right? If he can clear this board, and if he can ever just land in a Nixia, then that could just be lethal in a can.
With the Kronks?
Yeah, exactly, with the AoE buff.
What if?
And also, again, because there aren't really any minions, any spells to be generated at this kind of point of the game, are there any minions that deal with a board full of 1/1s? Not really, right?
His return is nigh.
Yeah, I think the problem with that, though, is that he just needs to deal with this board state that's in front of him.
Yeah, the order I did suggest was, can he deal with this board state? If so, and unfortunately
Yes.
does have to use the Kronks. And this is going to get gobbled up by this very cheap Shadow Word Rune, just been chilling in the hand most of the game.
Yep, triple Fate Weavered. No big deal.
still play the 7-cost Katrina Merton.
Care to dance with death?
So much garbage has died this game. Okay, that's pretty big. Last opportunity for Psychic Conjurer.
Don't keep your thoughts to yourself.
Very nice. Katrina is almost certainly going to demand a Shadow Word Death, and then there is the small matter of the 8-1. You just do not want to put any resources into an 8-1, but it's an 8-1, and 8-1s are a really big deal in Fatigue. So he might just he might just look to taunt up and just hope minion can trade for minion here. Richard Reclaimer again, Cabal Shadow Priest again, Shadow Madness in play. Bunny, the entire game up until this point, has really not given big value over to any of those cards, the Cabal Shadow Priestess and Shadow Madness of this world.
Is Bunnyhoppor finally running out of what I'll say is like tricky cards, right? Like answers or weird levels of development? Because at the moment, it does look like he's effectively just bomb dropping, which might not be enough if Seiko's that one step ahead.
He's just hoarding Hench Clan Shade Quills. That's not what you want in this scenario.
Care to dance with death?
Just the world's largest collection of 4/7s.
And although these minions are small from... Oh, he can even steal. Although these minions are small from Seiko, this is what I meant where at one point, you just can't play it as much as your opponent's got on board, and the game very quickly devolves. Look at this, is an insane turn as well.
Let me change your mind.
Feel that, that's going to buff. He gets to push, what, 4, 5, 7? Which doesn't sound like a lot, but Fatigue's kicking in, and all the stuff Bunnyhoppor's got heals your opponent. Which is not what Bunnyhoppor's looking for here. 3 Shade Quills, as you mentioned. That's not it either. That's just more heal if you're going to use it on a Shade. And that's going to be the concede. Whoa. A huge, drawn-out game there with the Priest Mirror. Seiko even just shaking it off. That was a tough one for both players, but Seiko just about stuck a board in that deep Fatigue. And Bunnyhoppor, as I mentioned, like the hero powers, the Priest minions came out thick and fast, but the last few were really not what he was after, as there aren't actually many Priest minions that deal with a board. Sol's long gone. I feel like I'm on my own, and honestly, I don't even blame him at this point. It is. I think that, although was a little bit crazy, was a fair outcome of how the mirror plays, right? Both players just hack it out until someone just quite sticks that board, and the removal's gone for everyone. It's just whoever sticks the board first at that point.
Like, I'm genuinely into it. Like, I find the matchup interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of like random generation, which does, you know, swing percentages either way. But I think it's a very like difficult high level matchup to play as well. But like once a week, I think is about the sweet spot to be seeing that on stream. You know,
agreed. I will say though that the fact that you can point to maybe 100 different plays there, the different lines that could have been made, that maybe possibly in some worlds change the outcome. But I think we have talked about that game enough for today's Sottle. Let's review our matches. Viper took down Pavel again, as is seemingly common this season of Grandmasters, a 3-1 victory. RDU continues his unbeaten streak in the round robin, taking down Boston 3-1 as well. Yala, what seems to be a theme of today, beats Swids 3-1. Seiko versus Bunnyhoppor, even though it may not have felt like it, was also a quick series in terms of numbers, the 3-1 as well. What have you got out of today, Sol? Highlights for you.
Hearthstone's just really sweet. That's what I've got out of today.
It's a cool game.
Most importantly, I think, you know, players that needed wins have picked them up. I think a lot of players have, you know, moved themselves into that compressed center at middle of the group where you see, you know, sort of Kalento down to Pavel and Yala down to Swids in the middle there, of just players around that 2-1, 1-1, 1-1 and 2 ratio, players with middling records, if you want to look at it that way. And there isn't really anyone getting stranded at the bottom just yet. The big question, though, is like Boston now has to win his next series. Zim and Casey need results this week. Hunter Ace needs results this week. They need to now pull themselves into the middle of that pack with the other players as well, because otherwise they are going to find themselves being stranded.
Yeah, if anything, Boston, Zim, and Casey are probably pretty happy they've got friends at the bottom there, because if you sat down there on your own, it's progressively less likely you're going to be able to come back. So currently, 2 spots in Division B, that 7th and 8th place, are auto-relegated at the end of the season. But with 3 people in the mix at the moment, then things are still up in the air for these players. So pretty spicy overall. And we are going to be done for the day. But before we go, we have Subtle's favourite moment of the day. So take it away.
If you missed any of that 3-hour priest game that we just watched, I'm sure the VOD will be up soon on our YouTube channel. So make sure you smash that subscribe button. Make sure you like the stream. And any of our streams are scheduled in advance. You can go and set a reminder for them so you do not miss any of the action. If you're a Pavel fan, for example, pro tip, he very often plays at the start of the day. So set a reminder and you will not be missing any Pavel series. But make sure you go and subscribe to Play Hearthstone and Hearthstone Esports, wherever it is you are getting your Hearthstone fix from.
Yep, and it has been our pleasure to bring you another day of Grandmasters. We've got America's following right up with TJ and Frodan, so be sure to stay tuned for some more Hearthstone, and maybe if you're very lucky, some more Priest Mirrors. We'll have to find out. But from Salt and myself, we are done for the day. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for some more Hearthstone Grandmasters.